Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're exploring the profoundly interconnected worldview of the Pueblo peoples, who are actually some of the oldest continuous cultures in North America. We're going to look closely at a society where the sacred and the everyday, well, they aren't separated at all. They're tightly woven together.
Okay, so here's our agenda. We've got 5 sections: the primacy of we, the rhythm of daily life, a tapestry of nations, art as living prayer, and finally, resilience and sovereignty.
To really wrap our heads around their worldview, I want you to think about this powerful quote. Our whole world around us is our religion. For Pueblo nations, like the Hopi, Zuni, Acoma, and Rio Grande communities, religion isn't just, an activity you practice on certain days of the week. It's the absolute fundamental structure of existence. It is a comprehensive way of being. Every single act, whether that's farming, building, or literally just speaking, is an active engagement with the universe. And that perfectly captures the huge philosophical split here. Think about a Western-influenced worldview. It generally focuses heavily on the individual, the I, and treats time as a straight, linear line marching toward progress. But Pueblo philosophy, it centers entirely on the we. Time is cyclical, it's ceremonial. The ancestors aren't just gone, they're present in a living past. And this is totally crucial. Nature is never viewed as some inert resource or a stockpile waiting to be managed for profit. Instead, nature is a dynamic partner. It's a living relation that you actively honor. Section 1. The primacy of we. So the real key to understanding this mindset is how the Pueblo view knowledge itself. In a lot of modern societies, we collect facts just to satisfy our own abstract curiosity, right? But in the Pueblo tradition, knowledge is strictly operational. What does that mean? Well, it means knowledge is really only valuable if it's being used to maintain harmony with the living web. If you know how the wind behaves, you don't just study it from a distance. You build a working relationship with it through observation and action, keeping your life totally in sync with the environment. Ethics aren't abstract laws handed down from above. They're entirely based on how your actions ripple out into that collective web.
Moving on to Section 2, the rhythm of daily life.
You see, architecture here isn't just about throwing up a shelter, it is literal social philosophy made physical. Take the kiva. These traditionally subterranean circular chambers aren't just rooms. They're the spiritual and legislative anchors of the community. They act as the center place, the pivot point where time and space literally intersect. They connect the underworld, the present world, and the heavens. It is the absolute spiritual heartbeat of the Pueblo. And this intense interconnectedness extends directly into their agriculture with the sacred Three Sisters. This is such a brilliant demonstration of how they engineered a highly sophisticated symbiotic relationship with their crops to thrive in a seriously harsh, arid desert landscape. You've got corn providing a sturdy climbing stalk for the beans. The beans, in turn, pull nitrogen from the air and fix it right into the soil to feed the other plants. And then the broad squash leaves shade the ground, acting like a living mulch to retain that precious moisture. Farming isn't just about getting food. It's a sacred duty and a continuous dialogue with the earth.
All right, Section 3, a tapestry of nations.
It's honestly so common to hear people talk about Pueblo culture like it's just one big, unified group. But let's shatter that illusion right now. Far from speaking one single shared language, they actually represent a vibrant tapestry of 21 distinct sovereign nations spanning completely diverse language families. We're talking about the Tanoan family, which includes Tiwa, Tewa, and Toa. Then there's Karasan, spoken by Acoma, Laguna, and Zia. Zuni is actually a complete language isolate, meaning it has 0 known relatives anywhere else in the world, which is wild. And Hopi connects linguistically to Uto-Aztecan groups much further south. Seriously, some of these languages are as different from one another as English is from Japanese. And because of this incredible diversity, their specific local environments dramatically shaped how their societies functioned. If you compare the eastern and western pueblos, you see distinct differences. Over in the east, near the Rio Grande, they relied on more consistent irrigation farming and organized socially into moieties, which are dual complementary groups, like summer and winter people, who basically alternate ceremonial leadership. But out west, in much drier, more arid environments, nations like the Hopi and Zuni developed incredible dry farming techniques. And socially, they structured themselves around strongly matrilineal clans. That means identity, inheritance, and ceremonial roles are all passed directly through the mother's line. Let's get into Section 4, Art as Living Prayer. Every single object in a traditional Pueblo home tells a story. It's this concept of operational beauty in practice. A water jug painted with cloud, water, or lightning motifs isn't merely decorative. It's actually a functional, essential tool for survival that is deeply imbued with spiritual significance. It acts as a continuous, living prayer to encourage rain and bring balance to the environment. The very act of making the art is a dialogue with the sacred forces of the universe. And that cultural diversity we were just talking about, it physically manifests in these amazing signature artistic styles. For instance, San Ildefonso Pueblo is world-renowned for its stunning black-on-black pottery. Acoma Pueblo, which sits way up on a high-altitude mesa, produces their distinct Sky City pottery. And Taos Pueblo's iconic multi-story adobe and stone architecture is just a masterpiece of communal design. And get this, it has been continuously inhabited for over a millennium. Today, continuing to create these traditional arts isn't just about history. It's a powerful, active assertion of their cultural sovereignty. And that brings us to Section 5, Resilience and Sovereignty. So, following Spanish contact back in the 16th century, the Pueblo faced unimaginable pressure to assimilate. For decades, they engaged in quiet resistance, often just subtly grafting new practices right over their ancient ones. But in the year 1680, that resistance became absolute. This was the Pueblo Revolt. It is a massive landmark moment in North American history. It was a brilliantly organized, highly successful indigenous uprising that actually expelled colonial powers from their lands for over a decade. It stands today as just a profound testament to their unwavering commitment to protecting their religious freedom and their cultural autonomy. And you can see that same generational patience beautifully charted in the modern struggle for sovereignty over Blue Lake. The Taos Pueblo consider this watershed the deep turquoise lake of life. It is the profoundly sacred source of their very existence. But in 1906, the U.S. government just seized 48,000 acres of this Aboriginal land. For the next 64 years, spanning multiple generations, the Taos Pueblo utterly refused any monetary compensation. They flat out demanded the return of the land, insisting it simply was not for sale. And their patient, relentless legal fight actually worked. It resulted in a landmark victory in 1970, when the land was legally returned to them, setting an absolutely massive precedent for indigenous religious freedom in the U.S. So we've seen how the Pueblo nations have survived and adapted for centuries by keeping their core values, their deep respect for nature, their community focus, their spiritual integrity, right at the absolute center of their evolution. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to really chew on. If we adopted even a small piece of this worldview today, if we actually stopped seeing the world as an inert resource just waiting to be managed and started seeing it as a living relation to be honored, how would our own future change? Just think about how that one shift in perspective might transform our entire society.